welcome everybody to today's 5 tips webinar. My name is J.M. Erlinson. I'm a transformation engineering lead and global evangelist here at Software AG. And I love Eris. I'm happy to talk a little bit more about how that platform works wherever, whenever you need. But today I am joined by my good friend, Martin. Martin, why don't you introduce yourself for the audience out there in webinar land?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you for the short introduction. My name is Martin. I'm product manager for ARIS, especially ARIS process mining, automation, and simulation. And I'm happy to run through and give you some tips on the baby steps to big leaps together with my good friend JM.
Wonderful. And today you're going to get a chance to sort of walk through some of the things we think are a concern, some of the things we think are interesting to think about, and some tips we have, specifically 5 tips on how you can grow your process mining practice. Now, I know a lot of folks are very interested in process mining as a discipline. And if you're here, by the way, please comment where you might be coming in from. I see Alana's saying Brooklyn, New York, USA. I'm over here in Toronto, Canada. Martin, where are you based today?
So I'm based in Saarbrücken, so in the west of Germany.
Oh, wonderful. I got to say, I haven't been to Saarbrücken, but someday I'd like to come visit you there. But in the meantime, feel free to throw in the chat where you're based. We'd love to find out where people are coming from. Now, everyone wants to do process mining. I put a post on LinkedIn yesterday. Who wants to do process mining? Everyone's hands up. Now, who wants to prepare for process mining? A lot of hands go down. And the truth is that there are a lot of challenges around process mining. Let's start by looking at some numbers, right? Like I like to just take a look at generically some numbers that might give you a bit of a story on process mining, its importance, and the concerns around it. So we have 44, 61, 64, and 80. What are these numbers? Where do they come from? At 44 says 44% of data and analytics teams effectively provide value to the organization from Gartner in 2023. That's a scary number, less than half. And there's a lot of reasons why that might happen. We'll take a look at some of the challenges a little bit later. But the truth is that looks bad on the discipline, that we're not able to show repeatable value. We're not able to necessarily achieve the value we're looking to get with process mining. It's an expensive proposition. I'm not just talking about tooling. That's off the conversation in that respect. It's expensive from a lot of different reasons. You're burning some of your most talented resources, their most experienced resources. You're trying to make them do something very hard that is supposed to return value while they don't keep the lights on and they don't do other sources of innovation. So you're making an investment as an organization. If only 44% of the projects are returning results, that's not great. And that's recent. It's 2023, right? 61% says decision makers really care about this. 61% of decision makers will use or are evaluating process mining to simplify operations. Forrester in 2022. So, but they said by 2025, the idea is that the majority of decision makers are thinking that process mining is going to be a way of them simplifying operations. So there is an executive level buy-in at a high level for the technology or the approach. Like, this is what we want to do. And that's good to know that it's in people's minds. The problem is in translating their idea into reality. I think that's a big challenge for a lot of organizations, that there's a misinterpretation or incorrect expectations or overambitious goal setting. We'll talk about that a little bit in the process mining pitfalls, but at least that 61% of the decision makers are evaluating or are currently using process mining. 64%. I say that when we survey CFOs, well, Deloitte surveyed CFOs. 64% of CFOs surveyed believe that inadequate technology and systems are the greatest challenge in turning data into value. Right, so they don't have the right tools in place. And today, Martin in particular is going to show you some of the tools you might be able to use and the tips that go along with them to be able to turn that data into value for an organization. And when the majority of your CFOs believe that they're not getting that value, and the reason that they're not getting value is that the technology they have in place isn't properly deployed or used by their teams, that tells you some of the priorities. And 80%. If so, 80% by 2025, 80% of organizations driven by expectations of cost reduction and enhanced process efficiency, will embed process mining in at least 10% of their business operations. A lot of numbers there, but essentially Gartner is saying that organizations are looking to embed process mining in how they operate. And that's pretty important. That's next year, right? And that was the assessment that they made. That was what in 2023 that they said that this is going to become a thing. So if you're not currently doing process mining, or you're just getting started with process mining, this is an important part of the conversation. So what this webinar is for you, on how you can grow this practice from just a generic, like an interest in this kind of technology, into something more repeatable. We did a webinar a couple of weeks back with my friend Eric Roovers, where we talked about demystifying process intelligence, some of the myths we have about process intelligence. But I would say one of them that really pertains to mining is that this is a single serving thing. So it's a project and it's done, and then our mining exercise is complete in the organization. I would argue that's a bad way of looking at it. We want to look at it as a lifestyle, sort of moving this to continuous operations. But with that in mind, Martin, I want to turn it over to you here as we talk a little bit about why process mining is important. I wax a little poetic, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you think and the importance of this discipline?
Yes, I think it's important to get everything involved. So there are a lot of things why this is important. So most of the people are really interested in to see how their processes are really behaving. So getting something in the system, so showing how the data flows, how their processes flow, and how also the people work with it. And also seeing what are the patterns that are used, what are the variants for different regions, how do regions do business, for different products, for regions, and also for different people. So this is something to improve also the business, and to work with it to become a better business afterwards, of course, and to identify things that might be looking, if you want to look at it, might be worth improving as well. Especially when it comes to automation or something else, to look also at the risk and compliance area, validate those things and have a look at them simply. Also become, of course, more efficient, look at bottlenecks, at problems, check the rules that you have implemented already and validate that they are really in the place. And also measure the things that are important for your business. So this is something that we call the process performance indicator. So really keeping track of them, validating that the processes behave like you expected, and also looking at them continuously to achieve the goals that you have set already. So it's really like JM said, a continuous process to also look at those processes, at the performance indicators in a conformant way, and measure really the success from the start of your project to the end. So I think this is something that we are really looking into, and it becomes more and more important to the business to not simply start with something, but having a goal in mind and then achieving that goal as a process in a continuous manner. And of course, at the end, look at the data and validate that you have something good in place now. And I think this is really what we are looking, and when process mining can really help us to improve the business in a structured way and leading fast to, I think, the achieving of your goals.
Yeah, I think it's achieving your goals. I see, why does anyone do anything in business, right? For three reasons, right? Make more, spend less, and de-risk the process. On the risk side of things, we talk about fulfilling relevant legal regulations, but and also you talk about patterns, right? Yeah. I see a really important thing of noticing process execution deviations and patterns before they become a regulatory violation, right? Exactly. Like compliance here, it kind of tells you the future you don't want to see, so that you can make sure that never becomes. And we take a look at it as a big risk that you can sort out with process mining.
Yeah, exactly. I heard this already, also with some customers. Okay, if you look now at those things, we can discover something that we would have never expected, and then resolve it fast, because we know then that there is an issue that they might have never expected. So
Yeah.
that's a great thing to do.
So we talk a lot about pitfalls though, and I mean, let's talk about the easy traps in process mining because there are a couple of them. I mean, the first one we talk about is a lack of proper scoping, and I included a picture of some rose-colored glasses here because the truth of the matter is that people have a misinterpretation of what process mining can do. Sometimes they're over-ambitious. They want like, oh, we want to mine completely end to end, the whole system integration landscape. I have 100 systems it's going to go through. I'm going to get the whole picture in one analysis and try and sort of bite the whole elephant in one giant gulp. And that scoping is problematic. The second is sometimes they start too small, right? So they're saying, oh, I just want to have process as these 2 or 3 steps. I've gotten data sets from customers who come and say, I do the mining on, I bring it to Eris, and it's it's so little information, it's so little process deviation that it really doesn't tell you anything about it. So you're trying to find the Goldilocks of processes to be able to start your practice and show some value. Now eventually it'll expand, eventually it'll grow, but we're talking about baby steps to big leaps, right? Your baby steps need to be the Goldilocks of process. And the third part of it is a value case, right? So you need to find a process that is important to the organization, something that it deems as a source of cost or as a customer facing, like a differentiator for them, something that they want, something that's often complained about. So you can either take it from an NPS analysis of your customer's experience, or you can take it from internal polling. I'll give you a good example. I work with a major financial institution here in the United States. Well, they're in the United States, I'm in Canada, but where they had internal processes that they were measuring about their own employee experience, and they were using that as a lever to make people have a better time as an employee and reduce the churn of employees. So retention and being able to get their services when they need them more quickly. Like if you don't have a value case, you're just doing this as an academic experiment, it's really hard to get some buy-in for it. A second is a lack of business context. You think about this as you're mining a process, and so somebody needs to know what that process is. Just saying, "Oh, here's a bunch of data, mine it for me and see what happens." You don't get the results you want. You need to understand what was expected. You need to be able to drill into the evidence to be able to interrogate it more fully. Hey, there's a long running step. Hey, there's a big gap in between these processes. Why? Right? Well, with some business understanding and context, I can start to frame that in some possible causes. I can investigate suspicious steps. I can know who to talk to interrogate further. I like to say that data may be king, but context is its crown. And lastly, you have no lever to change the business outcomes. If you can't control this process, all the process mining is going to do is throw up a flag and say, something is wrong, the sky is falling, and then go, well, good luck with that. And I'm off to the next one. Like that is a scary prospect where you simply leave the problems on the table rather than providing solutions to the problems, or at least proposing solutions. And the last pillar here is the stakeholder buy-in. I mean, if you're looking to start, maybe we're talking baby steps to big leaps. If you don't have stakeholder buy-in and alignment, it's really tough to grow a practice. I mean, first and foremost, this is viewed as a technology experimentation exercise. So it's a little, we're going to go play around with some technology rather than what it really is. And Martin, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but like this is building a practice, right? This is not just playing with some technology. And yeah,
Exactly.
exactly, right? And we also want to align this to strategic goals. Like, for instance, if you don't care about leaning your organization, you're looking to like grow your organization. Everything's about top line growth, not bottom line tightening. Well, if you're looking at internal process and like improvement and has no effect on a customer, that's not aligned, right? That doesn't mesh with what you're trying to do from an organizational perspective. That doesn't really read well, if you will, to executive stakeholders, and doesn't get you buy-in, doesn't help the organization really come on board. And lastly is single-threaded teams. I want to explain that a little bit. A lot of times process mining teams are kind of sequestered when you're evaluating a technology or a practice. They sequester it from the rest of the business. It's like, oh, it's a special feature, a special team, a special function, but they're really supposed to be more tightly integrated with your actual team. the people who know the business, the people who are aligning and approving projects and being able to operationalize projects into ways of working and align with multiple different stakeholder groups across the spectrum of different people, from organizational development to IT and enterprise architecture to risk and controls to customer experience. Like, all these teams need to be working with you rather than seeing you as like a completely separate entity. And that's for me, that's a pretty big pitfall. I mean, it really, we struggle with organizations who see this as like just a one and done separate team. Any comments and thoughts on this stuff, Martin, from your perspective?
No, I think you're completely right. Getting a team on board, aligning on the goals, getting the business also in there, providing a value. I think
Yeah.
this is essential. And it must also, in the beginning, there's one addition maybe. If it is a small value in the beginning, so have a speedboat approach and delivering something quite quick in the beginning, but some value that allows you to validate you in a very early state of the project, and then enhancing it further on to deliver more value, and then went through those goals and solve them, or put some more value on it. But scoping it, I think it's really critical in the beginning. Yeah.
I love it. So what are our 5 tips, right? Everyone's here for the tips. Let's talk about the complexity you're addressing, and then let's actually get you the ideas. I threw up this graphic. It's a lot, right? There's a lot of complexity in process mining, whether or not it comes from identifying your stakeholders and needs and their objectives, to a whole set of data activities to capture and measure and be able to map those data characteristics and the attributes to the KPIs you're looking to measure, and what that translates into in business value, and then being able to pull that from an application landscape, understand and know that all these, there's a lot of complexity to address, but we can by growing your process mining practice. So how do I operationalize a lifestyle? First and foremost, you want to start. So clear objectives. So start with your clear objectives. Define your goals for what this process mining practice is going to do. What is it going to provide for the organization? What are critical areas you want to focus in on? We'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into the slides. A second is you need to be aware and know your data landscape. This is a big challenge for a lot of organizations. We hear the same question over and over again. Our company doesn't have data. I mean, that's absurd to say, but it also makes sense if you don't know your landscape, or we don't know where that data might be stored. Well, identify the sources and formats, time bracket, and ingest the right data, so you know that what you're bringing into this practice is relevant, useful information. They always say, oh, you just want more data. More data can actually be really confusing. You want the right data and just the right amount in order to actually give you some sort of an understanding and a good analysis. You want to boost your analytic capabilities. Not to say your team isn't talented. In fact, quite the opposite. I think that most organizations who are growing a practice are starting with a very talented team of people who might come from a data science background, or from a business process background, or from an enterprise architecture background. Wherever you come from, that's fine, right? But the idea is you're a small but talented team that are full of experts, people who are often like very experienced, often highly compensated, often very useful elsewhere, that you're sequestering or seconding them into your own process mining practice from what they could be doing for the business. So you want to be able to have an accelerator for their capabilities, so they have to spend less time doing the less valuable work and more time doing the thought leadership work that they're really paid for, and most importantly, that they're highly valued for. That's an expression. You want the most number of people doing what they are best at for the majority of their time, right? So people doing what they're best at for the majority of their time. Fourth tip we have is a tuning, your process mining and modeling. So we want to see this as two sides of the same coin. A process mining practice, ironically, one of the tips is that it's not a process mining practice at all. It's a process intelligence practice. And you need to see that the full life cycle of process and architecture and data are all sort of part of the same picture, and that you can compare the two of them to each other seamlessly, so you don't have to worry about, hey, how does this actually stack up with what I'm doing versus what I plan to do. And lastly, our fifth tip is to influence. So you want to influence your stakeholder to realize change. And so you might have one stakeholder, you might have multiple stakeholders, but those stakeholders are across the business, and you want to invite them in with the right kind of perspective. So a good example of that is repackaging the information from process mining into less technical formats, things that they can very easily ingest. And I'm not saying to redo it all. I'm not saying you have to like throw up some sort of BI tool that's executive friendly, which is going to require a whole bunch of work on top of what process mining provides, but rather find ways of reformatting the process mining insights automatically using technology. And of course, it's great to talk about Eris today, to present that in a compelling way and to spur on people to do the right thing. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and we have a demonstration on each of these topics a little bit from Martin. So let's start with number one, right? Let's start with a clear objective, and we're looking at starting. I always ask the three questions: who, why, and how. Right. So who's going to need this? So having a specific objective allows business value engineers, people who are making the business case, people who are initiating the projects and creating a demand, creating a case for change, a case for technology and practice. That's going to allow them to more closely hook into what their drivers are going to be and appeal to their what are the key stakeholders, executives, who are going to be approving this sort of exercise. So you want to have a clear objective. You want to be able to take that objective and align it with strategic goals of having give a clarity of purpose, define your business case for approaching process mining, and that has to come through in a form that's easy to ingest and easy to maintain, rather than saying it like, oh, I need to just build a deck for this one-time thing. No, we're also continuously updating. So we start with a clear objective, but we keep checking in with this objective along the way, and we think that this comes from strategy definition, scoping, KPI, and metrics. This is we're going to use these as ways of helping to understand what we have to do and why we're doing that a lot better. And I'm going to stop sharing for a second, Martin, because I want you to explain what we see here and how we see this, particularly in Eris.
Yes, exactly. Let me show it to you in Aris directly. So what we see over here is the landing page of Aris in that case, and I've built here our strategy already. So this is the overview of everything that we are doing, processes, their IT systems, but we also have obviously some strategic KPIs over here, because we are now want to know which way to go. And now let's open this, and what we can see over here is the overview already on the KPIs that we want to focus on, and we have also, as we are in Aris, of course, a diagram on it. So and what we can see in here is exactly what JM told. It's an easy to consume way what we want to achieve. We want to increase the customer retention rate and decrease the working capital, for example. And we not only have a name on those KPIs, we also see how we can achieve that and how to measure them below. We, of course, know now, okay, we want to focus also on customer satisfaction. And how do we want to do it? We want to get a better on-time, in-full delivery in that case. And this is measured again by the in-full delivery and some other measures. So everything is now described in this diagram that we have over here. And there are also a lot of more information now on those KPIs that we can, of course, and that's something we will look later on in Aris process mining. So this is now the definition phase in that case. So what do we want to do and how do we want to achieve that using the KPIs that we have now in those diagrams. And this is also great for communication. I can show this to people. Are you aligned with that now? Do we need to add something? Do we need to make this another model, or do we need to tweak some of those KPIs that are available in there? So with that, we have then a strategy definition. We have KPIs that we want to look at, and we have a great tool to make this also available to our stakeholders. So this is the thing we aligned on, this is the thing we are working on, and this is our way to go, how we can achieve the goals that we have defined at the end and how to measure them. I think this is a thing where a lot of people already struggle with. So define the things, make it clear, and then also bring the people on board, include the stakeholders, show it to them, also work with them on the KPIs that we see already over here. And I think this is a great thing to do already, and to make it available to all the people in the company, probably.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, as we're talking through this, you can feel free to ask questions along the way in the chat. I think it's funny, Martin, that we start the conversation around process mining, not with process mining, because the truth is everyone wants to jump in, right? They want like, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. But let's go at the right pace with the right tools at the right time to be able to achieve some of our goals. Otherwise, we're jumping both feet and the glass won't hold, and suddenly we're
exactly. And I think define what you want to do, then do.
So with that in mind, I'm going to share again my screen. The next of our tips here is going to focus a little bit more about how the data landscape itself. That's going to be knowing your data landscape. So the question here is, do you know where the information is stored? So your process mining teams and people from IT or data security are going to need to be able to be a contributor into this sort of like synchronization between where our processes are happening and where that data is stored. So we need to clearly define the requirements of what we have for our particular process mining project. We need to identify the data sources, what data is coming from those sources, what sorts of data it's going to have, what attributes are going to be in that data, how those attributes help to inform our analyses, and how we do that is often landscape modeling or connecting in our application landscape with our process landscape. And then eventually in Aris process mining, the data ingestion and transformation of this data source into something that's actually useful. So know your data landscape, know how that's going to map into what you're going to be measuring. And once again, I'm going to pass this back to Martin. The truth is that oftentimes this is something you'll find inside Aris. So Martin, why don't you take over screen sharing again here and talk about how you synchronize application landscape and process landscape?
Yeah, I think if you look again at our chart that we had, I think we not only have in here the processes, but we now went really down. We can also see that we have in the diagram already some things that we have here in the model. We have not only the process that we want to focus then on, that we know already from our KPIs, but we can also see that we also have the IT systems already in here. And we also have separated diagrams on the different IT systems that we have already. So we can even went down and then have a look at those in detail. But I think what's important is that we can also have a look at that from the data side, from the process mining side. So as we have discovered some of the IT systems from that process already, for example, from this process that we see over here, there we have another diagram where we obviously already have the warehouse management system as one system that we want to look at. And for example, also our CRM, our customer relationship management system. So we know already two systems, and we know already that the pick and pack process, or that process that is below of that, is executed in the warehouse management system, and the tracking and notification is another system. So there is already a lot of insights in there, because only using that diagram that we have over here, that might be already in your organization as well, we know, okay, this is a system that we need to look at if we want to look at the tracking and notification. And this is another system that is important for us to get data from if we look at the pick and pack process. And typically what we also see in a lot of cases from customer, there are a lot of descriptions already on how to interact with it, and a system owner as well that is worth contacting to get the data on out of, and use to get the data in Aris process mining afterwards. So I think this is already a great way to interact with it.
So in a,
But
in a, in a plan, the planning phase, we're using Eris as well, right? So we're
yeah,
using it
exactly.
to say, here are the KPIs aligning strategically. Then we're using it to say, here's our landscape aligning technically.
Yeah,
Those were some good
exactly.
tips. Yeah, those are tips 1 and 2. I love these because I think it really gives you a good starting point to know what you're going to need to do. But
Yeah.
the third one is talking, and I know Martin, this is one of the loves that you have here, is talking about how we can lower that barrier to entry in process mining, right? So boosting your analytics capabilities. How do we do this? So business analysts and even end users love this, to be able to quickly go in and have something help them do the time consuming manual analysis step by step by step, and get them what they need to do to propose solutions to problems, right? So we want accelerating our time to insight, so making it faster, and lowering that barrier to entry so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. You don't need an advanced degree to do process mining. That's really important. So how do we do that? So algorithmic process mining analysis, very useful, but perhaps even more than that is our little friend, the AI companion. So Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what happens when you introduce an AI analysis tool into a traditional process mining analysis approach? And I'll stop sharing my screen because I think you got some pretty cool stuff to show.
Yeah. So I will share again now, and then let's have a look at it in detail. So I think where this will help you is, yeah, making a lot of decisions and getting help. So that's why we also call this the companion, because it should be your companion that helps you in, yeah, delivering the value, and in that case analyzing the data. So what we see over here is a typical visualization that we get from process mining. It's called the Process Explorer, and what it
Yeah.
does is it mines the process really. So this is the essential part. It shows you how the process runs through the certain steps that you see over here. And here we have also the button that is the perform companion AI analysis. And what we did over here is we prepared already some questions that are worth asking your data. So what it can do is it will have a look at the data and then answers your question. For example, it can provide a detailed description of the most frequent performed activities. And
Yeah.
when I click this now, it will do exactly what I have asked for. It will create a description. Okay, the most frequent performed activity in the process is the create delivery node. If I click this, it will highlight this activity, and it will give me a description what is happening and what it's doing. But there are also more questions. For example, identify the main anomaly. So it's not only giving me a description, it helps us to find already some of the insights that are worth looking into for a further analysis, and also applying filters, for example. So if I do this now, identify the main anomalies, it will also create a textual answer um, on this on this question, and yeah, give me some insights already. For example, I think it's now done. Duplicate entries for sales order and create invoice, and then it tells me, okay, there are duplicates in there, or there is a high number of connections. And this is in that case really the truth. So there is a potentially high number in this data, and this is something that I haven't seen on the first hand if this data would be new. Of course, in that case, the data isn't new to me. But Jane, what would you say? So if we hand
Yeah.
over the question, what's the main anomaly then? So would you have an answer for me quite shortly?
Just by looking at it, no, right?
Yeah.
I think maybe we have to do changes, but I wouldn't see like variable connection duration. I wouldn't see unusual exits necessarily. I wouldn't see inconsistent things. Like those are things that I have to really dig in. I would say that those sorts of analyses take long time. So you're looking at hours or days of people pouring through sets of data, what an AI can do in a matter of seconds. And I think that that's a big differentiator. I remember I said democratizing this process, you need substantially less expertise to be able to get the first cut of these analysis. Sure, to solve problems, you want to work with a diverse team of experts who can make this happen. But to get the conversation started, once again, baby steps to big leaps, right?
Yeah.
I would say this is a really easy first step that's quite powerful nonetheless.
Yeah. And we are exactly building it to democratize this experience. So to really get it to the people at the end that
Yeah.
want to use process mining in here. So the last example that I want to do in here is provide a detailed description of the underlying process. And this is something that I can also use to learn what the process is about. And I think the nice thing is I can really have a conversation now. If I now, for example, ask, okay, what is the create iDoc activity about? I can simply ask it, and I will get an answer. To write, in that case, it wants to have a more specific domain that I'm working on. I am working in the order to cache domain, and then it will provide me with a answer on that question. And in that case,
Whoa.
it's from an SAP system.
It's
So
like having an order to cash specialist just sitting next to you all the time, right?
yeah, exactly.
I like it. I like so. Let's move to the next of these because this is great. I talk a lot about democratizing. But this is like truly making it so much easier to get started with this. The next question is how do I align this and what I like to say attune mining and modeling to each other. And you want to center these process mining insights not just in just generically like here's some data we found, here's some ideas about this data. This data is about a process, and this process often has a blueprint upon which you want to base this. So your process intelligence team and also, as we talked a little bit before, your risk and compliance team would love to know a little bit more about your compliance. Are you, is the data showing at least, that you are doing the process the way that you expected to do it? Let's identify where the variations are. Why are we doing it? We want to align it. And how are we doing this? Well, we combine mining and modeling into one practice. So how do you grow? And this is maybe not baby steps at this point in time. This is like, we're taking we're toddler. We're like sort of toddling along where we're growing our practice into something that incorporates both mining and modeling. And it allows us to do a bunch of things. Conformance is important. And to do that, we want to see that in things like a model overlay or a conformance analysis. This is a picture of a model overlay, but let's make it interactive. So Martin, why don't you show me what it looks like to call up a model overlay and then what sort of things you can do with that information?
Yeah, let's start again from the screen where I stopped the sharing, and
Hey,
I've set this up for you already. So here we have the process model overlay, and I can, so what you see over here is in the background, you have a BPMN model of the process that has been modeled at the end. There are also other possibilities to get a process modeled. We have also AI capabilities. Maybe we can have a look at this as well. But let's have a look first at the overlay. What it shows is really on this variant how the process flow moves across the tasks, the steps in the model. So in that case, it went from the web portal order to the process order intake to the create sales order and so on. And the nice thing in here is it doesn't show simply only the things that are in the process. I can also get some more variants over here, and then it visualizes also which things I might have missed in the process modeling. In that case, create sales order, and then I have a next step, create credit block. And this is
ooh,
now something that's not in my process model.
yeah.
So I can have an action in here and putting it in the process model and make something with it. But this is already a great indication. And as we not only have the steps in here, we also have on the edges the KPIs that we know also from the previous step. And I of course can add other KPIs in here and put them on the model as well. So this is something that I can simply configure to make this also available on the process model for the stakeholders that want to consume those KPIs and that want to use those KPIs for their projects. And also, for me, it's a great indication how the real process performs and where I need to improve and where I need to enhance also the process model. And
Yeah.
I think this is really great to have this also in here to make it, also available for a lot of stakeholders and enhance the analysis by including a structure of the data in here.
Yeah, I like this a lot for a few different reasons. First and foremost, I mean, as weird as it is to say, this feels very obvious, right? Like you have a model that was a blueprint of how it's supposed to be. You have the data on how it was. Why not just show in a single frame whether or not the data is conforming to the model? That's a pretty cool thing. I also really like how it's highlighting for me four things, right? It highlights where we unexpectedly start in the process. So where there's like weird entry points, where we unexpectedly exit the process. So where there's like early exits or cancellations or failures of the process that we didn't expect. It shows me where I'm skipping steps in the process, so things that I should be doing that I'm not, that are grayed out. And it shows me in that big red color things I'm doing that I didn't expect. And so those are really clear, like potential compliance violations or uncaptured steps in your blueprint. Maybe this is something you can use to learn from the field. Hey, everybody's doing this weird workaround. Maybe we should make that part of our standard, or we need to address this and find a different way of enabling my team to do the work because this is not acceptable. I
Yes.
love. So
Yeah.
the last piece of the puzzle here that we want to talk about, and is the tip number 5. If you've been keeping up, is all about influence, and you've been seeing all along the kinds of visualizations you might get. But we're always having to sort of go to that visualization and sort of call it up from an analysis perspective. Or do we have to? And this is where hybridizing views is so important because you want to showcase meaningful and actionable insights to your key stakeholders, and you want to enable your end users to be able to interact dynamically with process without requiring process expertise. I'm not just talking about creators or analysis professionals. I'm talking about a wider audience of people who simply want to know what the process is. Those are your stakeholders too, right? So we need to clearly identify opportunities, talk about KPIs where we measured in like an analysis or measurement fashion. Are we achieving that? Help people find the information they need and be able to create an interactive experience for them that makes them want to come back so they can live that lifestyle with us. That's about embedded insights, and that's about AI powered searches. And in one screen you can see the model itself and the embedded insights. In the next screen, you can simply ask questions in Eris and have it kick back answers to you based on what you've captured. But I want Martin to quickly show this live because I think it is very cool. And then we'll get to our conclusions, wrap up, and of course, questions that we've come along the way. Martin, why don't you give them a little bit of a taste of what it means to align and influence your stakeholders with the information you see in Eris?
Yes, of course. So I think we tipped already on the topic by using the overlay, but let's now. So we are in Aris process mining, and I can also open this now in the Aris portal where all the processes have been published, and I can also have a look at the diagram over here, and I can also enable the overlay.
One second, Martin. I believe you're still sharing just Eris process mining.
Oh,
It's all good. Let's go to the Eris. Let's go to the Eris portal screen here. There we are. All right.
okay, now you should see it, right?
Yeah.
So it was just one click away, to be honest. So if I want to move back to Aris Process Mining, I can also click over here and then I'm back. But this is now the Aris portal view. And you see it also over here. But if I'm interested now in getting some dashboards in here, they're just there. So I can really have both worlds combined and looking not only on the process, but also having a look at the KPIs that I have over here. I can also have specialized views on the different things, on the important topics for myself. So I prepared here also some dashboards for compliance, for the
Yeah.
process duration, for
Yeah.
automation. So everything is something that I can have just here where I need it. And yeah, I think this is great to have because I don't need to move around quite heavily, and I can provide the information that's important for me and my stakeholder exactly at the point where they need them.
Yes,
And
it's self-service, right?
yeah,
And
exactly.
particularly, like, you don't have to be hitting up your executives every time. Oh, here's another screen I made for you, or here's another like deck that I present. No, they can just go and look at this, and it's at their fingertips.
Exactly. So, and of course, you mentioned it already. We also have AI-based search over here. So, what it can do is it can also answer my question. So it's directly over here, and I will just get a new one. And what I think the basic question that I always ask, because it shows really great what we are doing, is so if we would be a company that's called the United Motor Group, in that case I can just ask, who is the CEO of this group, of the United Motor Group? And the companion will now went through, will have a look at the process models that are in here, and it will come back with an answer. So obviously, the CEO of the United Motor Group is Jürgen Sattler, and it not only that, it will also give to me in that case where it has found the information. So I can then click on it and then having a look at the diagram where it found the information. And there are more questions that I can answer over here. For example, who is reporting into the CEO? Who is responsible for that case? Or also a question, as we are as a group in that case, in our example, we are we are a car rental company, and then I can ask, okay, what is needed to rent a car? And then it will also provide me with information, what is needed. It will give me a textual description of the process, and it will, yeah, give me some information how it needs to be done. And as you recognize, it will also have the right context in here from my previous question. So I can really have an interaction with my companion to solve my specific problem in my specific domain with my models that I have already in my Aris repository.
I love it.
So
I love it, Martin. So,
yeah,
so this that's tip number 5. I mean, making things accessible where they are, and making things accessible by a lot of different people from their background and perspective. I mean, everyone can type into a chat box and ask, hey, I have a question about how I should do things. Help me out, buddy. And Eris Companion is here to make that happen. In fact, process mining in Eris has a lot of different use cases it covered, whether or not we're looking to blueprint, whether or not we're looking to validate deployments, make sure that the right transactions are actually being accessed and that they're in the right order, whether or not we're looking to certify operational compliance or control risks, and help to automate the way we do processes, things like robotic process automation to improve the outcomes, and then living that lifestyle, continuous process improvement to make things happen. It is all in Eris. And Eris is that AI infused business transformation suite that makes it all come together. Martin and I, obviously, we work with Eris day in and day out, and these tips help you grow your practice. But as you grow your practice, the technology matters. As we go back to the very first slide we had, where companies, the 61% of the CFOs think that the technology platform is a big barrier for them achieving their goals with data analysis. Well, that's the truth. Is that a lot of technology platforms are either simple, which means they don't have the capabilities you need, or complicated, which means they're not really accessible by everybody. And Eris is the combination of simple and powerful. And I think uniquely positioned to make that happen for you and your organization. But with only a small number of minutes left, I wanted to open up for last question. So, from baby steps to big leaps, now you're on stage. Any questions from our audience to Martin and I about some things you've seen today, or questions about practices you're looking to grow within your organization? I'm going to stop sharing my screen and get over to the picture with my good friend Martin as people ask questions. I think our first question for the day um, is let's go to the very first question I saw in the chat, which is what type of diagram are you using to display KPIs? Martin, tell me a little bit more about the KPI, the diagrams you use to model KPIs.
In that case, it's named quite properly. It's a strategy diagram. So
Hey, that's what I want to do.
this is something we also have for a long time, and this is exactly the diagram that I showed you. So it's called a strategy diagram, and it's for building your
Yep.
strategy.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I got another question. So thank you, Kay. Another question from Abdallah. Abdallah, what are some examples of data sources that you might find for process mining? And I'll answer a couple of examples of that. So oftentimes large scale transactional systems, ERPs are a good one, or CRMs or ITSM systems. They ITSM those tend to be capturing transactional logs kind of by default. You have to for a lot of reasons, one of which being like legal obligation to keep records of your business transactions. They'll be really good sources for data, transactional data on your systems. And there are also smaller scale like automation tools, business rules engines. Those sorts of things tend to have lots of data. Martin, can you talk about sort of where you might find data like stored or how you might be able to access that information?
Yeah. So at the end, it's you can find data in any system. So if there is a system, there's probably data that we can use for process mining. So I think there are a lot of sources that are easy to get it. For example, if some kind of a workflow is wending through, it's easy to get the data out because it has already a process inside of it. But if you think of it, a lot of things really have a process because things need to flow and run, and something needs to be executed. And this is, I think, essential. So there's not simply a system that needs to be mined. So you can also incorporate other systems. So I showed you, I think, in the example that I did, the CRM and the order management system. And if you put them together to have really one connected to each other, because what you ship is at the end the thing that has been ordered somewhere else. And if you connect them, for example, using an order number or the document identifier, I think it can even be more valuable. Start maybe with the small processes in the beginning, then put them together and having a look at the end-to-end process. So it's also something that's interesting to look into.
Yeah, Martin, I also find that sometimes, besides being in the system themselves, oftentimes organizations will kind of, by a matter of course, export that data to data lakes or data warehouses that will contain large set data from all over the place, right? And so by connecting into those sources, we can actually draw out all the stuff that would have been normally like point to point connected in each of these transactional systems. And I think that's just in general, there's just what Martin said, data is all over the place. The key here is actually finding the right data and the right amount of that data to make a meaningful analysis happen. So I wanted to move to another question because I really like this from Florian. Thank you, Florian. Florian asks, how is the connection made between the modeled process and the process mining data to see the variance? I'm going to sort of this is a good example of this particular process from with a question from Florian. And I wanted to maybe actually, Martin, you might want to share your screen on this one to talk about how you do the mapping of process and process data to process model data. But there is a mapping process. Just to be clear about this, sometimes what you see in the transactional data is not actually the name of the step that you would have written in a blueprint. There is some automatic mapping that we can do, but the comparing these two to each other comes to the reference process. So Martin, why don't you explain the reference process and how we do the mapping here in Ares process mining?
Yeah, so it's quite easy, I think. So I have already two reference processes in here that I transferred from my Ares repository to Ares process mining. So make them usable, available for Ares process mining. So, and what I can do in here now is I can click on it, and here we are in the mapping. So how it's done is I can, in that case, click on, for example, create invoice, and then click on to create invoice that's in the data. So the left side is the reference process, so the task in the reference process, and the right side is the data set activities. So the activities that I have loaded from the system, and now I have mapped them. So it's really clicking on the model at the end, left side, clicking on the activities in the data, and then they are mapped together. To achieve this, I think there is one step before, especially for data, is to aggregate or de-aggregate your data to the
Mm,
level where you need it. I think,
yeah.
and this is a thing that you also need to take into account. But this is something we can also do, for example, using a capability in the transformations, or using our integrated capability, the event log, that allows to aggregate or de-aggregate the data based on attributes that you have over here. And then it's really that mapping that allows them to map both sides of the coin at the end.
I love it. This is it's great. And you mentioned the transformation module. We thought we take the maybe you have a thought on this just as a quick aside on how much data cleansing you would want people to do. This is a bonus, a sixth tip from Martin. How much data cleansing you would want people to do prior to it being ingested in Eris process mining, and how much you might use the transformations module of Eris process mining to do that data cleansing. What are your thoughts on that sort of by the one or the other, or some combination of both?
Yeah, I think it's a it's a bit up to the system, but typically, as we want to have it continuously loaded, I think most of the things can be done in process mining itself, using the transformation that really prepares the data then to be loaded into ARIS process mining. If it comes to a data lake, for example, some data pieces might be already pre-prepared. This is also something that we can use, but I think most of the things can be done in ARIS process mining. This will allow also you the best flexibility because you can edit most of the things already in process mining itself without the
Mhm.
need of having other tools in there. Of course, beside the extractor that's also delivered by us, and maybe some other extractors that we are currently developing. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. That's great. So I have another question, which is interesting, and I'm actually curious to hear the answer for this myself. The Eris AI knowledge management. Uh, Oscar asks, is it available in Spanish or in other languages in general? Tell me a little bit. What are the restrictions? I know the interface is certainly available of Eris in a lot of languages. How about the AI component?
Yeah. So I think if you ask a question in Spanish, it should be available in Spanish, and it will recognize the language of the model itself as well. So if
Hey,
you have maintained this, then it should work also in different languages. One thing to add is a kind of a disclaimer. This is a thing we are actively developing,
yeah.
and I think we are working also together with some customers to get also feedback for us. But languages should work. I think, yeah, they should work.
They should work. And Andrea asked about EPCs. Right now, I believe this is primarily BPMN. Is that right?
Greetings to Entry, by the way. So EPC will come in October.
Excellent, excellent.
Um, I think the overlay with the EPC is something that I had a look this morning,
Ooh,
and I'm already quite happy how it will come with also some other enhancements on the overlay, but it will come in with the October release, and then we will have the EPC overlay as well.
excellent. Well, hey, look at that. You're getting a free preview as well from Martin as we enter into the final stages. I know there are a couple more questions. Thank you so much for everyone asking these questions. You can find myself and Martin on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with us. In fact, you can see in the registration page for the session, you can find our LinkedIn and our emails. Please email myself or him if you have any more questions, things you'd like to talk about. Go to eris.com or join our eriscommunity.com to find out more about the Eris platform. It's been wonderful to have you, Martin. You're amazing, excellent. I love hanging out with you for sessions with folks. And thank you to everyone who came along for their very excellent questions. I'm really glad we had a chance to chat about the 5 tips for growing your process mining practice from baby steps to big leaps. Hopefully, everyone has had a great time. If you there's usually post-event surveys and polls that go out. Give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, and tell us what you'd like to see in the future. We continue to have these 5 tip sessions on all sorts of things around the process mining, process modeling, process intelligence practice, and particularly around how we do it here with Eris. Well, until next time, friends, thank you so much, Martin. Thank you to our audience. We will see you
Yeah.
in our next session. Have a great afternoon, folks.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day, evening, wherever you are. Bye.